We know Blu Bearing is a training group for firearms and tactics, and but you made it your ministry.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean,
I didn't. I listened, but as the CEO and founder, like I'm in charge of the brand,
right?
And maybe it started as a way to Uvalde. I'm just going. I can share these things that are going to help increase your lethality, your survivability, all these things. But man, what an opportunity to witness to others in our own ways. Like think of the, as Paul says, with these, the hope, faith, and love are the three that remain. Right. That just means those are never going away. The other ones we have to unlock, the unique gifts that God's given us. And I believe that this ability to minister to others, discipleship, right? Mm-hmm. In front of with body armor on, right? Shooting, moving, and communicating.
Well, your experience and your occupations, your experience with the level you're at. I mean, those things allow you to be in front of a different group of people than a pastor ever will be.
Yeah,
you have a unique platform, and that creates opportunity in ministry. I mean, I've seen it in my own life. Like I've tried to leverage the audiences to get to be in front of, whether it's going to speak at a military unit or a corporate event or a church or a jiu-jitsu seminar. Everywhere I go, people are going to know the testimony of Jesus in my life. And it's just the different things that God's allowed me to do in my life before I was a believer. Those things still carry over as a platform.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. And it's the peace that brings in. So being on solid footing and having a purpose, right?
Yeah.
Being on solid footing you have to check in, right? Checking in. We sat and prayed in the car before we came in here as a team. And you mentioned like how we get these opportunities that are different from a church ministry. Well, our third instructor that we hired this year works full-time in ministry, and his father is the lead pastor of it. So he gets he gets to see, and we get to have conversations with his father about how Blu Bearing is a ministry. So it's not taking away from his church obligations as the director of discipleship. He's only adding two. He's adding two. So, man, I love it, but it's, that's the work that's worth doing.
Well, I can't think of a better place. Look, I mean, you guys are I mean, right now you guys are just training the county we're in right now. You guys are just training a SWAT team, and I know some of those guys those guys need to hear truth. They need to hear that truth of someone who's been in the trenches themselves and done it, and they'll listen. But a lot of those guys are not going to go this Sunday morning to church. This upcoming Sunday to church. Some of them will, but some of them won't. And so maybe the first time they could ever hear truth is from you guys.
Yeah.
Why are you teaching them how to
That's the beauty of it. That's the unique gifts that God's given me and this team, that he's placed these men in my life. And Erica is the anchor of all of this that we do at Blu Bearing. But like, even in wrapping up, yesterday, the training, man, guys were sharing things with each other that they hadn't shared because of how we deliver this a message. It's not us talking at you. It's God speaking through us to you, and it's also meeting people where they are, right? So respecting that journey that led me to this, and when the opportunities to talk about, because to truly embody being a protector. So the protector mindset is learning to love yourself, right? In a way that, like, to care for yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And then the love that you can receive, and give, is actual love. It's not codependency. It's not something different. And to protect your mind, what you're consuming, the people you interact with, right? So, and diet, right, all those things, like mind, body, and spirit, like protecting that. And now I'm ready to deal with the unknown, to be challenged, and I will, and it's but I know that surviving not just that crisis, but surviving that with my career intact, with everything that I care about still with me. Because if we just keep going, and we're going to leave this wake of things that we think is unconditional love,
right?
But we'll lose it if we don't nurture it, and that is our families. And that's the most important thing that I've been given in my life is my family. My wife, my children, and then everyone else. You know, as far as that priority of relationships, but I don't worship my wife. Right. I don't worship my children.
Yeah, you've spoken a lot about this, and you know, to bring some clarity of it, I think ultimately what you're saying is, you know, the perspective of where everything has its place, and when things are in there outside of the rightful place, it causes disruption in our lives, and when it comes to our walk, and you know, God needs to be above all, and our worship of God should not come second to worshiping jobs or nations or even spouses.
It's idolatry.
Idolatry, right?
Yeah.
And then the wife should come second, even before our children. Which, as parents who are loved, that's hard, right? Because we, as parents, we like love our children. A lot of days we don't even like our spouse, but we like are crazy about our children. But it's very important.
But you get to do it together.
Unit. Yeah,
you know, you get to do it together,
and they get to see it.
Yeah,
they get to
and
see
that's
it.
Man, that's the part that still kind of eats me up. Is like what my children had to witness, and what a good relationship is.
Yeah,
because I could sit there and blame my childhood of like how my mom and dad interacted, but the fact is like I've been given the opportunity to show them what a good man is, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
and that's how our legacy is, that right, the seeds that we're planting in them, we may never even see the fruit of that. Like they're children's children, they're children's children's children. Your legacy, it's not a title that you obtain, it's not an award you get, it's them.
Yeah.
And I've raised my son as my own. He since he was 4. I've been, you know, when Eric and I got married, he was 4 years old. He's 24 years old, man. I'm so proud of him. I work with him full time now. He produces our podcast.
Yeah.
So, because there's this like Starship Commander, everybody's like, who's that? It's the producer, which is my son.
Makes it happen behind the scenes.
He's going to hate me for that right now because he wanted this whole like mystique thing and whatever. But, man, I just love it, man. Like what a blessing, dude. Like the other thing is like, success, like we have to define it, or else our priorities are going to always get misaligned. If we can't, and it, you know, financially, like you need to be able to eat, you need to be able to have shelter, you know, live comfortably, right? If you live in a good life, but ultimately, if God wills me to be financially wealthy, then okay. If He doesn't, then okay. And that's where, what do you worship?
Right.
If you think about blessed are the poor in spirit, for they will inherit the kingdom of heaven. Like poor in spirit, we think poor spirited.
Yeah.
Which is not the case. Being poor in spirit is to be spiritually bankrupt, to where you have to surrender that over to God to fill that for you. And man, it's just it's what you worship. If you think about the rich young ruler, right? Or the rich young man, or young rich ruler, example that Jesus gave of, he came running to him. You know, this is after the Sermon on the Mount. He came running to him and on his knees, like, teacher, like, what do I need to do to inherit the kingdom of heaven? And he told him, be poor in spirit. And he's like, well, and he gave an example of you've been following the 10 Commandments. You know what they are. He gave some examples. And he's like, I have since childhood. I have adhered to all the commandments. And Jesus looked at him and said, well, here's one for you. Go home, sell all your possessions, give it to the poor, and follow me. And the rich young ruler turns with a sad face and walks away. Yeah. Because what is he worshiping? Yeah. Yeah. And that's the first commandment. Yeah. Like, worship nothing other than God. And if we're worshiping our possessions or our titles, it's going to go away.
I don't want to end without asking you this, because I know it's a super important part of your life and the way you're living right now, and it's very important to me, is discipleship. What is discipleship to you?
I think it's what we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the conversations we're having right now. I think it's getting ourselves outside of ourselves. Of course, we've been talking about me a bit, but I'm not going to tell you anything that I haven't experienced.
Right.
I'm not going to make things up. I'm going to share as Jesus did. He spoke in parables. I'm going to share stories, right, to help you connect in a way. But it's not, and those are the seeds that we plant, but that's the Holy Spirit to encounter, but we plant those seeds, and those are the treasures that we build up in heaven, is all the seeds that we plant. So that is discipleship is the already and the not yet, the in-between time.
Yeah.
Like that's what we're doing. If we're being intentional about it, like that's our calling, that's our mission. And the gifts that I've been given are to be able to teach, firearms and tactics, because it's inherently dangerous. So I'm able to, encourage people, even if they're not religious, to seek something bigger than you. But as a Christian, we're gonna pray. But if you have an issue with that, just take this moment to meditate, to reflect, to be present, to be where your feet are, because this is dangerous. So I know we all have, maybe we didn't sleep good, maybe we got some stuff going on at home, but we're here to train. So let's be where our feet are. So we're going to take this moment to pray. And we do that in every course.
What would you say to people that would say, like, hey, you guys are running a gun company, you're doing a tactics company, why do you have to bring religion? It's bad for business. Like,
yeah.
I mean, because you will lose opportunities,
yep,
like, because of it.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
I say that's okay. That's why Jesus sent them out in twos, man.
Mm-hmm.
2 by 2. Because when you encounter the town that you get spit on or stones
mm-hmm.
thrown at you, that you have each other to lean in towards one another and to move to the next town.
Yeah.
That's it, man. Like, this isn't about like how many people we've trained or, is Blu Bearing the best training company in the world, but we're the best training ministry out there.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And we're just going to keep growing.
Yeah.
Because I have confidence in what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Yeah.
So like individual ego is the enemy on a team or in life, but a collective, like being proud of your team, I think is extremely healthy.
Yeah. I love that you're standing on a principle, because same with me in speaking. I do a lot of corporate speaking events, and companies reach out, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to come to Exxon and give a sermon,
mm-hmm.
but if you want to hear my story, if you want to hear principles on leadership, if you want to hear about networking and relationships, you're going to hear about my biblical worldview and my faith in Jesus, because all those things, if you want to hear from me, that's where my perspective comes from. So you're going to hear those things, and sometimes they say no, and that's fine.
I mean, that's happened to me. Even I spoke a little bit last year, quite a bit last year, to start to mm-hmm. do that, to practice that, because you can't just say, just like with teaching, instructing, right? Mm-hmm. Like I could have been the best operator, but am I a good teacher or not? I have to practice that. Just like with speaking, public speaking, I had to practice, and I have to continue to practice it if I'm going to do it. But I've actually done a corporate thing, predominantly law enforcement and some church stuff, right? As far as my speaking, military. But it's really heavy. And I tell people, like, if I'm going to come do this, just like you, like I'm going to talk about God. I'm going to talk about my walk with Jesus. I'm going to talk about, I will be respectful with certain places about like the psychedelic stuff. I may not even bring it up. Because I've done so much other types of treatment. My whole point is the resiliency piece of resilient leadership. And if you think about leadership, period, like what's one word that you would use to describe leadership in your own?
For me, it's responsibility. Leadership is responsibility.
And it is. And for me, it's caring.
It's what?
It's caring.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I care.
Yeah.
I care about people. I care about leading by example.
Yeah.
Regardless of times where I wasn't, I care. And that's the whole point of doing these leadership talks. And if we can talk about the person that cared about us more than anyone else and
Which
give that glory where it's due. That's what my point is. Like people are going to say, hey, no thanks,
Yeah.
but I'm also, we're not knocking on doors.
Yeah.
Like we're not like,
exactly.
hey, can we come?
Yeah.
Like do this? It's people are coming to us, and that's the blessing of the Sean Ryan interview that I did and that Blake did with him more recently, and thank you for that, Sean. But my whole point is that the branding, right? Going back to the being in charge of the CEO, right? Chief Everything Officer. Like I don't know what I'm doing, but it's like it's getting easier, it's getting better, building the right team together and listening to counsel, seeking counsel.
You talked about leadership being caring. I love that. I love that. If you pick one word, that's powerful.
Yeah.
For me, when I say responsibility, I think because many leaders love being in charge, right? But to me, it's leadership is taking responsibility for successes and failures, and ultimately, it's servant leadership.
Yeah.
Servant leadership is acceptance, responsibility, which I go back to kind of like you go back to Jesus caring. I go back to no one modeled servant leadership like Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's completely sacrificial leadership.
So that's like, the branding, so how we're branding, it's drawing the right people there, and I think getting that message out up front, there's no hidden layers to this.
Not surprising
it's
anybody, right?
It's, hey man, you know what you're kind of getting out of this.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't realize the extent of it, but I think that's just being honest with yourself, and I'm not going to try to sell something that I don't have, or, so I think being very clear with how we brand, and it's not like you have to be a Christian to train with me.
Sure.
But that is how I live my life.
Right.
So if I'm going to live my life that way, but then not honor that in my profession, then what am I doing?
Right.
So it's not like I walk around. It's not a sermon every.
Not being obnoxious, right?
Yeah, it's meeting people where they are.
Yeah.
But caring though, I think that is the most important. That lowers people's guards a bit, and then it allows them to be a bit curious about the tactics, and then about how I say hey man, I don't stay in hotels by myself. Anytime we travel, we stay together. We're here to train. We're not going out and doing this and doing that. There's a measure of accountability that we have in our lives and that we live, that we share with others when we're training, and we perform. We get in there with them and do it. And if I can't do this and perform on demand under stress, and a part-timer, if that's stress, or paper targets, if that's stressful, I tell people, I'm like, don't let paper targets defeat you. They're here for your training use, man. You just have to know how to maximize them, whether it's a threat ID or shot placement. You have to understand what you're doing and how you're isolating, the different fundamentals of marksmanship. So, man, I love teaching that stuff.
Yeah.
But we do it in the ways that we've been shown. And that's the biggest difference between all the instructors, right? All the teams of training companies in this. I didn't create a single tactic or technique that I teach. I am sharing things that I've been shown, and I've developed the ability, the curriculums, the delivery of them, my experience practicing them and operationally using those tactics and techniques. That's what makes us all different. If a training company thinks they invented a tactic or technique, they're full of crap, man. So there's snake oil salesmen out there too. So I've developed certain shooting drills and this and that, and I've borrowed some from others, and I give credit where credit's due. I always do. If I was experienced something from you, right? So if we went out and shot, and I'm like, oh, I like that drill, hey, I'm going to use it. They're like, hey, this is a drill that Chad showed me. And, that's what this is, man. I am not this end all be all answer to all operational questions, but I've experienced a lot, and that's all I can, the collective experience of our team. That's what we share. We're not there to teach you how to do your job. We're there to show you some basic principles and push you and to challenge you. And then we pressure test it with people if we're doing scenario-based training, which is a majority of what we do.